It's Sunday morning, and we are talking about a various number of things. We had something happen this past week that I was really glad to see, and that was the death of Billy Graham. That's one less false prophet out there. He was a false prophet. I've got all kinds of books on him. I got one here called All Roads Lead to Rome, and it talks all about Billy Graham forsaking the right way. I don't believe he was ever in the right way. I don't believe he forsook truth. And then I got this book on smoke screens. This is put out by Chick Publications. It's talking about the smoke screen across America that has blinded America about the Roman Catholic Church. They have literally taken over. We've got their Christmas, their Christ Mass. It amazes me that at 12 years old, I sat and watched a midnight mass, the first time I ever seen one on the TV, when my father went out and bought a little 8-inch screen. And I'm a little kid. I'm just 11, 12 years old, sitting watching that. I'd never seen a TV in my life, so we watched everything. All we had was 2 channels. We had NBC and CBS. ABC had not really taken hold yet. And I'm sitting there as a kid looking at the TV. We watched everything. We watched the Midnight Mass. We watched Howdy Doody. We watched children's shows. It was interesting because I'd never seen a movie in a house. And we had a little 8-inch screen. And there's the Pope doing the Mass. And I'm sitting there as a little boy saying, is this the Mass of Catholicism? My little introspective mind and my analytical way of thinking was at work when I was a little boy. And I was sitting looking at the Pope doing the Mass, and I'm saying, is Christmas Christ Mass? I think that St. Nicholas is another name for Santa Claus. He was a Roman Catholic priest or something. I found out when I grew up that he was a 4th century Roman Catholic bishop. You say, what does that have to do with Billy Graham? It has to do with everything. Billy Graham put his approval upon the Catholic Church. I get this from every kind of direction. I've got the same words in this book that I'm about to read that somebody sent me. And it says, Dr. Graham declares his gospel to be that of the Roman Catholic Church. And then it goes on, speaking at the Roman Catholic Belmont Abbey College, North Carolina, Dr. Graham said, the gospel that built this Catholic school and the gospel that brings me here tonight is still the way to salvation. That is plain enough. Then the executive vice president of Belmont Abbey College, Reverend Cuthbert E. Allen, a Roman Catholic bishop, agreed. He wrote, I have followed Billy Graham's career, and I must emphasize that he has been more Catholic than otherwise. Has those same words in this book. More Catholic than otherwise. Billy Graham is preaching a moral and evangelical theology most acceptable to Catholics. Now, the Catholic gospel is this. It surrounds the Eucharist. This is everything Catholicism is about right there. It is the focal point of Catholicism. This is a Roman Catholic book. I had a Catholic man come here, and when he came, he said, I read from this book, and he had been in a seminary up in Kentucky to become a Catholic priest, and he had quit that so-called calling. And he said this book was given to most of the novices that came into the Catholic seminary, this one right here. And that shows a priest holding the Eucharist. This is the focal point of Catholicism. This is what Billy Graham says is the same gospel he preached. They raise that Eucharist up. They say, Hoc est corpus eum filii. And they say that word corpus is the word corpse. That's a Latin term. They say when they utter those words, this turns into the literal body and blood of Christ. And even though there's no blood presence, it's a bloodless altar. They say within that Eucharist is the blood of Christ. And you have to walk down the aisle and accept that Eucharist. That's where accept Christ comes from, accepting the Eucharist out of Catholicism. And you have to partake of the Eucharist, otherwise you can't go to heaven when you die when you are a Roman Catholic. But you can't partake of the Eucharist unless you are a Roman Catholic. During Bill Clinton's administration, he went somewhere over in Africa, I believe it was, and he was in a Catholic church, and he had the gall to partake of their Eucharist, and the Catholics went through the roof about it because he was a Baptist. If you want to call him a Baptist, he was really a Catholic. So Billy Graham is saying this gospel is the same thing that he preached. Well, I think he's right because he didn't preach anything. Now, Billy Graham was a liar. He preached accept Christ, which is accept the Eucharist. Let me read something else here. Does Billy Graham preach Rome's gospel? The mystery of the Eucharist is the center point of the sacred liturgy and indeed of the whole Christian life in the Catholic Church. In this contractual act of worship, Rome claims that the Mass is a sacrifice in which the sacrifice of the cross is perpetuated. They say each time that Eucharist is offered, he is the victim of the cross each time. Well, they haven't read over there in Hebrews, the 10th chapter. Look at Hebrews, the 10th chapter. They say he's the victim each time that's offered. Now, Billy, if that's what you believed, I don't see how Billy Graham went to heaven when he died. I don't see how. He didn't believe in being hated, did he? Jesus said, if the world hated me, it will hate you. If it persecuted me, it will persecute you. Did they hate Billy Graham? He has been on the top of the popularity polls. They take a poll who the most popular people is in America. He's been on the top of the poll since he started preaching in 1948. He's been either 1, 2, or 3 every year. And the Bible says, whosoever will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. Friendship with the world is enmity against God, and he was the world's friend. He loved all the presidents. He actually had the gall to tell that womanizer, Bill Clinton, you have such a way with the world, you need to be an evangelist. That's what we need, one more evangelist sleeping with all the women he can. I can't believe he even said that to him, but he did. I heard him say it myself. So Billy Graham was a false teacher. If he got into heaven, I saw him in an interview with, what's her name, the famous woman interviewer? Barbara Walters. And she said, what do you want God to say when you go before the judgment? He said, I would like for him to say, well done, good and faithful servant. But I don't know that he's going to do that. He added that on the end of it. I heard him say that. Now, Billy Graham, let me read on some more on this. In this central act of worship, Rome claims that the Mass is a sacrifice in which the sacrifice of the cross is perpetuated. Look over here in Hebrews, the 10th chapter. And this is going to contradict Billy and the Roman Catholic Church. I'm reading out of a King James Bible. I believe in the Textus Receptus, which is where it comes from. Hebrews 10. Hebrews 10. The Bible talks about it's not by the blood of bulls and goats that sin is taken away in verse 4. Wherefore, when you come into the world, he saith, sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body hast thou prepared me. In burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin thou hast no pleasure. Then said I, lo, I come in a volume of the book. It is written of me to do thy will, O God. Above, when he said, sacrifice and offering and burnt offerings and offering for sin, thou wouldest not, neither hadst pleasure wherein which are offered by the law. Then said he, Lo, I come to do thy will, O God. He takes away the first, the Old Testament sacrifices, that he may establish the second, the New Testament. The only sacrifice there is Christ, by which will we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all. Once. Not every day in a Catholic church when they have 3, 4, 5 masses and they sacrifice Christ every day. And they call him the victim. I don't know if Billy Graham was so stupid he didn't know what they believed. And every priest standeth daily ministering, offering oftentimes the same sacrifices which can never take away sins. All those bulls and goats don't take sin away. But this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins, forever sat down on the right hand of God, from henceforth expecting till his enemies be made his footstool. For by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified. One offering, once upon the cross. So, Billy, if you believe that, then you don't believe God. I've read so many things about Billy Graham. He put his approval on men who did not believe in the virgin birth. Men who were out and out heathens and called themselves preachers. I've got a book here. It's called Billy Graham and His Friends. It's unbelievable what he did. This is written by Dr. Kathy Burns. She got into research like you would not believe. And they expose him as a fraud. He was not a preacher of truth. He put his approval on these. He receives an award, the Templeton Award, and the Templeton, this Mark Templeton, John Marks Templeton, he didn't even believe in the virgin birth of Christ, or that Christ was virgin born, or that he was God in the flesh. And he would put his approval and say, these are some of the finest people. The Swedenborg Foundation is an occult organization. Sadly, Christianity Today, a magazine founded by Billy Graham and his father-in-law, Nelson Bell, devoted the entire back cover of its April 25th, 1994 issue to an ad promoting this heretical work, which was endorsed by Norman Vincent Peale, who wrote the foreword and said that Templeton was the greatest layman of Christian church in our time. Billy Graham puts his approval on that, and Templeton didn't even believe in the virgin birth. And who also a former judge for the Templeton Prize. Robert Schuller, J. Peter Grace, who was also the former head of the Knights of Malta, a Catholic organization, and New Ager Theodore Hirschbaugh, who is advisory council for the Planetary Citizens. It goes through here. I can't even begin to read you all these things. He put his approval on one woman who says that she that God came down and inspired her, and she spoke for God and wrote a testament of Jesus Christ on paper, and God was causing her to do that. And he put his approval on that. The things that Billy Graham has done, I can't begin to even tell you all these things. This is a book worth getting hold of. I've got a lot of things marked in it. He approved of everybody that liked him. He liked the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama liked him. He was friends with the Pope. It's just insane. And the world is honoring him. He's the most popular preacher in the last 2,000 years. He was preaching to 150, 200,000 in stadiums in 1950 and 51. That makes Benny Hinn's crowds look like just a little bitty dot in things out here. Just nothing. He has preached to more people in history than anyone and been the most popular man. The Bible says if you're friends with the world, you're hostile to God. The scripture says, woe to you when all men shall speak well of you, for so did their fathers to the false prophets. Boy, how can this man get into heaven? I don't know. Rome's gospel denies justification by grace through faith in the merits of the righteousness of Christ. If anyone shall say that it is by righteousness of Christ itself that men are formally justified, let him be accursed. This is from the Council of Trent, a Roman Catholic council. If they say it's by grace alone, if anyone shall say that justifying faith is nothing else than trust in divine mercy, pardoning sins for Christ's sake, or that it is that trust alone by which we are justified, let him be accursed, the Roman Catholic says, if it's by faith alone. Rome's gospel is a gospel of human works and merit. Rome's gospel denies the sole mediation of Christ. The Blessed Virgin is invoked in the church under the titles of advocate, helper, benefactress, and mediatrix, which is a female mediator. How many mediators are there in the Bible in 1 Timothy 2 and 5? There's one mediator, one go-between man and God, the man Christ Jesus. He's the only mediator. The mediatrix was all the female deities of the Old Testament. I don't have time to go into all that. It's unbelievable what this man did. He snubbed his nose in the nose of God, and I don't see how he got into heaven. Dr. Graham, I don't want to call him a doctor. They gave him an honorary doctorate from Belmont College. He's not a doctor, no more than one of my dogs is a doctor. I'd rather my dog would doctor me. Dr. Graham hails the Pope as the greatest religious leader of the modern world. He wrote this in a lengthy article in the Saturday Evening Post, 1980, and went to refer to John Paul II as one of the greatest moral and spiritual leaders of this century, and the man was an antichrist. That's what Billy Graham said about it. The Pope bans sinners from going directly to Christ for pardon. Confession to a priest to obtain absolution from sin constitutes the only ordinary way in which the faithful who are conscious of serious sin are reconciled with God. Pope allows no access to Christ for pardon except through a human priest. The Pope invites men to turn with me to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, Mother of Jesus, and they call her Mother of God. She's not that. Jesus was God. He was the I Am. Long before her womb was just an entry into this world for the living God. And he puts his approval on all of that. Graham sends his inquirers. Here's something really bad. You see all those people walk down the aisle in a Billy Graham crusade. You see that? They'll tell you in this book, everybody that writes about him, what he would do. Well, let me read this to you. Long ago, Dr. Graham, I'll just call him Billy, stated his policy for following up and inquire. His name and address and a lot of information about him is taken, and within 24 hours, that is sent to the minister of the church of his choice, regardless of the denomination. If you're a Catholic, you walk down the aisle of Billy Graham crusade, they send your name and your card to the local diocese for them to follow through. Back in the mid-50s, in mid-60s, I remember reading that the average population of the Southern Baptist in America was 15 to 16 million. I looked up the other night, the average Southern Baptist in America is 15 to 16 million, and they said they're going down. They're decreasing. we are living, America is willingly ignorant. They like being fooled and they like to feel good. Dr. Graham stated in his policy for following an inquiry his name and address and information about him is taken, and within 24 hours that's sent to the local minister of his choice. He even says that himself, that if you're a Baptist, we'll send you back to the Independent Baptist Church, the Southern Baptist Church, the Missionary Baptist Church, whether they tell the truth or not. Well, the Methodist Church, we'll send you back to your Catholic diocese. This is one of the terrible things right here. I've read this from several sources. Dr. Graham betrays his Baptist brethren in Russia. Of Russia, Dr. Graham says, I think there's a lot more freedom there than has been given the impression in states because there are hundreds, thousands of churches there. What does that mean? Thousands of what kind of churches that preach what? He went on to give the impression that he found more religious freedom in Russia than in England. In Great Britain, they have a state church. Here, Russia is a free church in the sense that it is not headed officially as the Church of England is headed by the Queen. A woman was arrested at one of the Russian meetings for displaying a banner with the message, "We have more than 150 prisoners for the work of the gospel." Dr. Graham defended the police for arresting her. He said, "We detain people in the United States if we catch them doing things that are wrong. I've had people coming to my office in the United States causing disturbances that have been taken away by these police." The Bible says, remember, that they are in bonds as bound with them, and them which suffer adversity as being yourselves also in the body. Dr. Graham in Russia did not want to be reminded of the Baptist pastors and other Bible believers being held in prisons and concentration camps for their faith. They are brave sufferers for Christ. Billy Graham added to their agony, he stabbed them in the back. Did you know that about Billy Graham? I could read all day long. I taught against the man. I went for a long period of time. I'd use this book right here, Billy Graham and His Friends. Let me read some to you out of this, The Fallen Idol, out of Smoke Screens. You can order these. You can order these from Jack Schick Publications in Ontario, California, and they'll send you all of them you want. And they're about $5 a piece, something like that, 5 or 6. After World War II, the Vatican had to pick and back an American champion who would be a friend, a man they could help put on a pedestal, who would be loved by everyone. God forbid that he should ever be a Martin Luther, who went up against all of Germany, all of the world. He thought he was going to die because he complained about the Catholic Church in his 95-point thesis that he nailed to the walls of Wittenberg, the church at Wittenberg, Germany. This champion would woo and win the hearts of the American people, a biggie, a champion they would support. He could be used as a Pied Piper who would pull on the evangelicals into the arms of the Pope. That's Billy Graham. It was a Roman Catholic publisher who saw Billy Graham in 1948, William Randolph Hearst, that built Billy Graham in America. William Randolph Hearst owned many newspapers. He put the word out. When he heard Billy Graham, he liked him. He wouldn't say anything to make him mad as a Catholic. So he put out the word in his newspapers, Puff Graham. To puff means build him up. Everything you can say good about him in our newspapers. They wanted a man who would be a good speaker, a man with charisma, who could pack stadiums. They found him. William Randolph Hearst, a good Roman Catholic publisher, used his newspaper chain to push Billy Graham to fame. It was Roman Catholicism that built him. Billy Graham spoke to multitudes and became greatly honored and respected and imitated. When he preached, he was honored, and men praised him because he had a big round voice and he never said anything that was offensive. I often read the scripture, whosoever therefore will be the friend of the world is the enemy of God. I quote that often. The newspapers were really blasted Billy Graham. Magazines said he was one of the world's most loved men. And it's got in here a letter from Belmont Abbey College. It's got him sitting with one of the bishops from Belmont Abbey College. And with it, all of his smile on his face. He had a big round jaw and he had a big round voice. But that ain't going to get you into heaven. This man said, this is a letter to a Catholic from another Catholic, from Cuthan E. Allen. He says in this, I am the one who, being acquainted with Billy Graham, invited him to speak to the fathers, the nuns, the students, and invited guests, and I am pleased to reply to your inquiries. Billy Graham gave an inspiring and theological sound address that may have been given by Bishop Fulton Sheen, one of the mushiest mouth guys I ever heard. He had a TV show in black and white when I was in high school. Just mushy, nothing. That's who Martin Sheen, the actor, named himself after being a good Catholic. He started calling himself Sheen when he was actually Spanish. I've followed Billy Graham's career, and I must emphasize that he has been more Catholic than otherwise. Now, this is the Catholics touting him as wonderful. Billy Graham is preaching a moral and evangelical theology most acceptable to Roman Catholics. This is what's wrong with America. They just say smooth words, and it makes everybody feel good. I'm going to read something. This is an affront to God. He is standing there, Billy Graham, at a Roman Catholic Belmont College, receiving the yoke from Rome. Graham was granted an honorary doctor's degree from this Roman Catholic college. Graham told his audience that the gospel that founded this college is the same gospel which I preach today. He was a disgusting man. But he was really nice, wasn't he? He talked real smooth, and everybody liked him. If somebody's smooth talking, look out. They're going to get you. Smooth talkers, the Bible says, beware lest these men spoil you. They'll spoil you. They'll lead you away. Mark them which cause divisions and offenses that are contrary to the doctrines that ye have learned. It don't matter whether it's smooth or not. If it's contrary to the doctrines you've learned, and avoid these people, because they that are such serve not our Lord Jesus Christ, but their own belly, and by good words and fair speeches they deceive the hearts of the simple. That word simple, haplotes, means innocent. They lead the innocent people away by their good words and fair speeches. Let me read this to you. I can't say it any clearer. In the Catholic Herald, June 3rd, 1966, Billy Graham is quoted as being a friend of the Jesuits in the United States. You know who the Jesuits were? I've got a book called History of the Jesuits. The Jesuits were the hitmen of Roman Catholicism. They were started by Ignatius Loyola. He's the one that started Loyola University in Chicago. It's a Roman Catholic school. You had to have a killer's mentality to be a Jesuit. You had to be able to smile while you're stabbing somebody in the back at the same time. You had many different orders in the Catholic Church. You had the Dominicans. The Dominicans are the ones who started the Inquisition. You had all kinds of orders. You had the Franciscan order. Franciscan order, and that was an order that was started by a young monk named Franciscus. Franciscan order. You had the Jesuits. The Jesuits were the ones who enforced the Inquisition that was started. It was started by the Dominicans. You had many of these orders, and they were out. They persecuted this Inquisition. This was a system that was started by the Dominicans. It was enforced by the Jesuits, and they slaughtered 60 million people in a 700-year period. They killed this many people that called themselves Christians. These were the Albigen's family, the Albigens, the Waldens. You had many families in Europe. The Cathars, and the Cathars may not believe what we believe, but most of these people believed in predestination. They believed in salvation by grace through faith alone, and they killed over 60 million in a 700-year period. You had many forms of the Inquisition. You had the Spanish Inquisition, you had the Roman Catholic Inquisition, you had the Portuguese Inquisition. All of these, it bled throughout all the world, and they would send people into a town. They would ask you if you would partake of the sacrament of the Mass. If you refused, they would start torturing you, and they would finally kill you. They'd pull your bones out of joint, they'd peel your fingernails out. They did some unbelievable things. You can find the story about it in the I think I've got it up here. Here it is. You can find the story all about it in Fox's Book of Martyrs. They'll tell you all about it. They'll ask a young man, 19 years old, "Will you partake of the sacrament of the Mass?" He says, "No, I will not." And they burned him at the stake. They'd take women, do the most horrible things to them. Cut their breasts off, cut their legs off, put some kind of a pole up their behind and set them out in the middle of a field to languish till they died. You say, "Jim, that's crude." That's not crude, that's history. And Billy Graham he put his approval on this kind of people. I didn't like him at all. He approved of murdering people. Well, he wasn't murdering himself. He put it on a system. This is the system. America's under this system right now. Christmas is Christ Mass, it's Roman Catholicism. Ishtar is Easter, that's Roman Catholicism. Halloween is All Hallows Eve, or it was Samhain, the Day of the Dead, where they honored the dead in the Roman Catholic Church. Before that, they honored the dead in the pagan world. It's all paganism. Let me read this to you. Billy Graham received an honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters. I don't know how they could be humane. From the Roman Catholic College. Billy noted the significance of the occasion by saying that this is a time when Catholics and Protestants could meet together and greet each other as brothers. In April 1972, Billy Graham received the International Franciscan Award in Minneapolis, given by the Franciscan Friars for true ecumenism. Are you familiar with what ecumenical movement is? Boy, all the fundamentalists back in the 50s, when they began to mix everybody and everybody began to accept everybody, Ecumenism is the same thing that Catholicism was founded on. It's the edict of tolerance, where they will tolerate everybody. Everybody's going to get along. The ecumenical movement was started so you get the Catholics to move in with the Baptists, and the Baptists move in with the Church of Christ, and everybody getting together. People wonder, why are you so angry, Jim? I've got all these things going on in my head all the time. I can't get rid of them. I don't have it out of one book. I've got it in my library. I got several thousand books in my library. I got hundreds of books with it in it. We are just living in a dead world. And they honored Billy Graham above everybody, and they don't know he approved of all of this. You read this. He put his approval on some men you wouldn't believe. It's a wonder he didn't put his approval on Adolf Hitler for killing the people who killed Jesus, the Jews. In 1972, Billy Graham received the International Franciscan Award in Minneapolis, given by the Franciscan friars for true ecumenism. Before I quote what Billy Graham said about Francis of Assisi, what an idiot he was. First, let me say this about St. Francis. He believed he was saved by works, by helping the poor. This way he believed he was saving his soul. St. Francis was canonized, which means that he was made a saint of the Roman Catholic institution because of his strong position on the doctrine of works. Beloved, we know that this is unscriptural. Did you know that St. Francis of Assisi blessed and baptized animals and gave them Christian names? He was a nut. Even the Roman Catholics know he was a nut, and the reason he put emphasis on helping the poor and good works, I've done some research on Francis of Assisi. He stole some horses out of his father's barn. He was kind of a thug and a punk when he was young, and his father came to him and said, unless you renounce all your inheritance in my property, I'm going to have you put in jail. So he started renouncing everything, and he found out, well, I got a good thing going here. People will give me food, they'll give me money, they'll give me whatever I want. And so he started renouncing, and that became his way of making a living. In fact, one of the writers said he would go out, he would be on a fast of some kind, saying he's not going to eat any meat. And he'd break the fast and start eating meat. And he'd take a whip and go into town and go from house to house and say, I need you to beat me with this whip because I broke my fast and my vow to God. That's how crazy he was. And what did Billy Graham say about this strange fellow? He said, while I am not worthy to touch the shoelaces of St. Francis, yet this same Christ that called Francis in the 13th century also called me to be one of his servants in the 20th century. And Francis of Assisi was a nutcase, but Billy Graham didn't bother to go find out. When Billy Graham appeared on the Phil Donahue show in October 11th, 1979, in discussing Pope Paul II's visit to the United States, Billy Graham said, I think the American people are looking for a leader, a moral and spiritual leader that believes something. We didn't get it in the Pope Paul II. And he, meaning the Pope, does. He asked the people to come to Christ, to give their lives to Christ. You can't give your life to Christ, and you can't come to Christ. Thank God I've got somebody to quote now with some real authority, speaking of the Pope. You want to get some documentation on that man. He was a wicked man. And you got a section of this, All Roads Lead to Rome. These, you can't hardly find them anymore. You may find some on the internet. It talks about Billy Graham. I didn't like the man. Boy, when he died, I said, wonderful. Now people, how can I find all this information? They can't. You can get it off the internet. It's everywhere. You know, I've asked people, a lot of people wasn't even familiar with Billy Graham. Is everybody here familiar with him? You young people, were y'all familiar with Billy Graham? Huh? You weren't? He's the most famous preacher in the world for 2,000 years. And he just didn't have any principle. That's amazing to me how young people don't even know who he was. You've got a section here in this book about Graham. And I don't have time to read all this. I just can't. I got to get back to the Bible. All right. Billy Graham. Boy, what a loser. How did he get into heaven? How? The most respected preacher in the world that's ever lived since the Apostle Paul, and he was a false teacher. Let me read some of the things the Bible says about people like this. I quoted a verse that's one of my favorite verses. I'm going to go over there to Romans 16. Romans 16. All the old people know Billy Graham. He was a world-famous evangelist. He drew more people than all these guys put together today. When you're talking about Benny Hinn, and you're talking about Oral Roberts and Kenneth Copeland, they're amateurs with their crowds compared to Billy Graham in the 50s. He was drawing stadiums full of people. And this is what he is right here. Verse 17, Romans 16. Now I beseech you, brethren, mark them which cause divisions and offenses that are contrary to the doctrines which ye have learned. Point out these people. Mark, scopeo. We get our word scope from that. It means aim at them, point them out to people. People say, you're not supposed to call names. Yes, you are. How are people going to know? I've been accused of telling people about people that have come to this ministry that caused all kinds of trouble. I'll warn you, I'll warn every time. That's not gossip. That's, hey, this guy did this guy did this. If they come around, you tell me because I want to know. They caused trouble. They lied. They stole from the ministry. I've had people steal from the ministry. Had one little boy came in. He was about 10, and I saw that one of the offering plates that sat by where we used to set it was empty, and it had a bunch of money in it. And the people that he came with, his mama had told him, take the money out of the offering plate. It's 10-year-old. And these people that brought him, they had to go to him and say, give us that money back. Had to take it back to the offering plate. But there's people that steal from the ministry. Now mark them, which cause divisions and offenses that are contrary to the doctrines you've learned. This is what Billy Graham does. This is what he did. He had a contrary doctrine. Contrary is the word para. It means parallel. It's a doctrine that goes right along with the truth. Contrary does not mean it's at the opposite end of the universe. It means it has a Jesus, it has a gospel, it has a Holy Spirit. But it's the wrong Jesus, the wrong gospel, the wrong Holy Spirit. What do you mean, Jim? I mean the same thing. Well, let me finish reading this and I'll show you what I mean. That's a contrary doctrine. Didache means instruction. It sounds good because it's got Jesus in it. It's got gospel in it. It's got Holy Spirit in it. It's got saved in it. Just because you can come up and say saved, salvation, Holy Spirit, Jesus, God, that don't mean you're preaching the truth. There has to be continuity to the Scripture. And avoid these people. Now that word avoid, eklino. K-L-I-N-O. Eklino is an imperative mood. It's a command that we pull away. We lean away from these people. Lean out from them. Get away from them. You can't go to some church that mumbles some kind of message and it's not the truth, and you just kind of let the guy get by with it and you just leave. For they that are such, if it's a parallel doctrine and not right on target, God's word is exact. If you said, if the world hated me, it'll hate you. If it persecuted me, it will persecute you. That means you have to be hated. Therefore, the world hates you. What are people going to do with that? Well, that means to kind of not like. No, it doesn't. It means to hate. They hate you when you tell them predestination's true, Christmas is pagan. God doesn't love everybody. You tell a Church of Christ that baptism does not mean to dip in water. It means to cover with a stain or a dye. And He's washed us from our sins in His own blood. But what about they washed Jesus in water? That was a proselyte baptism, and I'll explain that to you if you want to take time. But they serve their own belly. If you don't know that the belly was an Epicurean term, belly was an Epicurean term. Epicureans were one of the philosophies in the first century. The two most popular philosophies were the Epicureans and the Stoics. And Jesus and Paul is using Stoic philosophical words all the time. And Paul uses this word belly quite often. He said, these men served their own belly. If you serve your belly, you don't believe in a daily cross. You can't. Paul said so. If you serve your belly, that means the seat of all sensual desires. I want that car, I want that house, I want that food, I want that girl, I want that guy, I want what I want. That's your belly. And by good words and fair speeches, they deceive the hearts of the simple. The way they deceive is by Christologia, good words, Christo, L-O-G-I-A. Christos means useful logos, words. It sounds, here's what it sounds like. It sounds, preachers can preach and lead you away by plausible words. Well, that sounds right. You ever said that about a preacher? Well, that sounds right. You don't check out his detail in his words? Well, that sounds okay. Walk down the aisle and accept Christ? That sounds okay. It's not. I keep saying this. Do you have to accept Christ? Yeah. Can you accept Christ for salvation? No. The natural man does not accept spiritual things. They're foolishness to him. But you will accept Christ after you're born again. You'll accept His teachings and you'll do what He says. The problem with these preachers, first of all, they're not even telling you how to get in the kingdom by belief. But you got to remember, believe is a verb. Verbs are what you do. Believe is the word P-I-S-T-E-U-O. That's the word believe. Faith is the word. This is the noun form. The noun Faith is P-I-S-T. Notice P-I-S-T. That's the stem of a word. The word endings are changed due to some character of the word. P-I-S-T-I-S is a noun. That's faith. P-I-S-T-E-U-O is the verb form of the noun. So if it's a verb, it shows action. So if you believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, it's what you are doing. It's not saying, I believe in predestination. Well, do you ever talk about it? I believe Christmas is pagan. Do you ever tell anybody about it? If you really believe something, you don't say, well, this is not the time to do it. I'm on the job, or I'm standing on the front porch of this church, and they don't believe this here, and this is not the time to do it. That's exactly the time to do it. We're to be instant in season and out of season. In season means when it's convenient. Out of season when it means there's no convenient time. Say it. It's not a matter of looking for the right place and the right time. It's by good words and fair speeches. That word fair speech is the word eulogia. Good eulogia. We get our word eulogy. It comes from eu and logos. It means well words. That's how you fool people, with well words. If you don't believe in a daily cross, which I don't hear preachers preaching it, you can't be a disciple of Christ. If you don't mean no daily cross, no disciple, and you love your belly, and your belly has to do with dirt. Look at Luke 14:26. Luke 14:26. Billy Graham didn't preach these things. I looked up last week before he died. I don't know why, I just looked it up. How much money he was worth. He's worth in the millions. In the millions. Look at 14. There's 2 verses here, or 3 verses, I never heard anybody talk about. 14, verse 26. If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also. He's talking about this man of the flesh. The belly. That's what he's talking about. Because the previous verses is talking about a man that throws a supper for his friends and they all turn it down. He said, go out and compel the lame and the halt and the blind to come in. He says, and the ones that make excuse, they begin to make excuse. I've married a wife. She won't let me come to grace and truth. I bought a new lawnmower. I got a new field that I got to check out on Sunday. I don't have time to come and listen to those things you say, Jim Brown. Besides, you make too many people mad. Verse 20, one says, I've married a wife. One says, I bought 5 yoke of oxen in verse 19. One says, I bought a piece of ground. I got some ground I got to tend to. If you don't hate those excuses in a person, he says, you can't be my disciple. Disciple is the word mathetes. Disciple, mathetes. Learner. If you learn something, you're going to want to tell people about it. Of the abundance of the heart, the mouth will speak. If you want to know what people are interested in, Listen to them talk for 5 minutes. They'll tell you what they're interested in. If it's money, they'll tell you about it. If it's investing, they'll tell you about that. If it's something besides the Word of God, that's what you'll hear from them. You won't hear anything from a man that he doesn't want. That's not in his heart. It's going to come out his mouth. Now, so he says, if you don't hate all of this that makes excuse against God, but I love my son, I love my daughter, I love my grandkids. I do too. I got a grandson that's about 35. I hadn't seen him since he's a baby. But if he thinks I'm going to come out there to California and see him when he has no interest in God, he wrote me an email and he said, I guess it's time for me and you to renew our acquaintance. We didn't have an acquaintance. You were about 6 months old the last time I saw you. And he said, but when I come, I don't want to talk about religion. Well, you're talking to the wrong man, boy. You don't want to talk about religion. Can anybody imagine being around me and not talking about religion? That's all I talk about, constantly. I go out and witness every day to somebody every day. If I run into anybody, little guy over there at the restaurant the other day, I was saying, hey, I got to give you something before you leave. He said, what's that? I want to give you a DVD. I teach some Greek and Hebrew and history. And I said, did you know, and one of the first things I'll say to him, did you know it was against the law to celebrate Christmas 300 years ago in America? And I was amazed. He said, yeah, I've heard of that. I said, you heard it? He said, yeah. I said, did you know that God doesn't love everybody? He didn't know that. I'm going to say, take time. You don't have to get emotional. Just say, hey, let me ask you a question. When I go into my doctor's office, I say, Doc, let me ask you a question. Did you know it was against the law to celebrate Christmas 300 years ago in America? Every one of them have said, I didn't know that. Every one of them. So it gives them something to think about. Now, we're still talking about the same people that are making excuses. Verse 27, whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. You can't learn, and you love your belly. You love to fulfill the flesh. And then he says down here in verse 33, so likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he hath cannot be my learner and can't tell people the truth. You can't be a disciple if you don't forsake everything. What do you mean by that? What does the Bible mean? To give away everything you've got? No, I've said this before. If you give everything you got away, you'd have to give away everything. Then you have to take your clothes off and give them away and jump over in the weeds. Let the weeds cover you up. And then you'd have to put your grass skirt. Then when somebody comes along, you'd have to give them your grass skirt and jump back in the weeds and make another skirt. That's not what it's talking about. You got to forsake everything that you want to make an excuse for not serving God for and for not paying attention to the Word. You got to hate that in yourself, because that's when you want the flesh. Go back over to Philippians, the 3rd chapter. And this is the problem with most of the world. This is the problem with Billy Graham. You know what's wrong with the preachers? They want money, attention, popularity. They want everybody to like them, don't they? Isn't that what most of the preachers want? The big churches here in town, they want people to like them. So what they do when they get ready to hire a preacher, they check out his background, see what kind of a guy he is, how much people like him, how popular he's been, where he came from. Oh, that's the kind of guy we want. And they hire, popularity is what they hire. They don't hire a man that knows the truth. If they did, all the churches in town would be trying to hire me. Ain't none of them going to hire me. They're not even going to let me preach they would have one of those hooks that you used on vaudeville. They'd put that hook out on me and pull me off the stage. Mr. Brown, we can't have that here. Now, back to Philippians, Ephesians, Philippians. You've got to, in order to be a disciple, you can't serve your own belly. If you serve your belly, you're listening to good words and fair speeches, aren't you? Smooth words will fool you. If you're not educated in the Word, slick words, somebody making you feel good is not going to be good for you spiritually. If you don't ever hurt, something's wrong. Look here. Now he's talking to Philippi. Is Philippi believers? Well, yeah, they are. It's a church. So he's not talking about vessels of wrath fitted to destruction here. He's talking to believers that love their belly. Remember, the belly was the seat of all sensual desires. I want what I want. So he says here, brethren, be followers together of me, and mark them which walk so as you have us for an example. Paul is saying, be followers. Huh? Oh, in verse 17. Be followers together of me. I want you all to follow me. Summa metes. Summa metes means with, together. Mimetes is our word mimic. He's saying if you don't know how to live, and people say, you're not supposed to follow a man. Yes, you are. You need to follow a man that's following Christ, because if you're too young to know what right is and wrong is, and I'm talking about morally in your life, you need to find you a leader and follow him. I've had people come here and say, we're not supposed to follow Jim Brown. Yes, you are. If I'm following Christ, when I quit following Christ, you quit following me. Because Paul is saying right here, be followers together of me. Mimic me. He says that more than once. Says it over and over again. Be followers together of me, and mark them which walk so as you have us for an example. For many believers at Philippi walk, of whom I have told you often, and now tell you even weeping. Paul is not going to weep over vessels of wrath fitted to destruction, is he? He's weeping over believers because they're not walking right, that are enemies of the cross of Christ. You can tell this is the daily cross, because as a daily cross, it's going to tell you in the next verse, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly. They're listening to good words and fair speeches. And whose glory is in their shame. And here's how you can tell them. Their mind is on earthly things. Mind is the word phroneo. Phroneo means sentiment. Their feelings. Their feelings are about earthly gay. Gay is the word earthly. It means dirt. You can tell when a person has his mind on Christ, it's not on houses and cars and things and stuff. I don't care about things and stuff like I used to in my 40s. It's not interested. Don't care about cars or houses. Anything that I go out and purchase is for my wife. That's it. I would live in a room half this size with my books around me. I don't need anything else. That's all I need. I don't care about stuff anymore. I want to wear these bright shirts so they'll show up against the white board. I got all kinds of bright shirts. They need to show up against the board, but I don't ever wear them out in public. Never. Because I'd rather have on a T-shirt that says God does not love everybody. That way I can preach to somebody while I'm walking down in the grocery store, at the post office. And people will say, you don't think God loves everybody? Well, he said he didn't. Well, I think he does. Well, he said he didn't. He said he hated all workers of iniquity. He loved Jacob and hated Esau before either one were born. You can read that to somebody and they'll say, it don't mean what it says. We'll say, what does it mean? Because they can't tell you what it means. Well, I just don't think God would do that. God hated Esau before he was born. And what gets me, it says, before he had done any good or evil. So God didn't hate him for the evil he'd done. He hated him, period, because it's a prerogative. It's God's prerogative to make one vessel unto honor and another to dishonor. And he said, who are you that replies against God? The reason the preachers preach the way they preach is for that very reason. They don't want to make anybody mad. If I make you mad, that's too bad. That's your problem with God, not your problem with me. You got to learn. Facing the truth hurts. If you face the truth about your heart, that hurts, doesn't it? They mind earthly things. Their sentiment is on dirt. If you stop and think, all matter in the universe is dirt. Your car is dirt. Your house is dirt. You're dirt. Your money's dirt. You go to a dirt building. You work on a dirt job. You produce some dirt things. You might work up there producing dresses or underwear, but it's still dirt. Working up there at Vanity Fair. You used to work with dirt when you unload those big steel pylons. It's dirt. It all come out of the ground. Every bit of it's dirt. If your mind's not on spiritual things, you don't want a daily cross. If you won't say the truth to somebody, you don't want a daily cross. He's saying right here, these people didn't want a daily cross. They were thinking about dirt all the time. I need a new camel. That's dirt. I need a new donkey. Oh, that's dirt too. It don't matter what you talk about in the material world, it's dirt. And most people's mind is on dirt, isn't it? It's something I can see. I don't believe in it unless I can see it. Oh, you like dirt, right? Next time Alan says that to you, Ben, just say, oh, you like dirt. Bible condemns you. You hate daily crosses. You hate crucifying self. It's really sad. Billy Graham wanted the same thing some guy on the street that preaches good words and fair speeches. They all want a big congregation. We won't ever have one here. You can't get, there's no such thing as having a mega church. I had one guy come in here one night and he played several horns. And he had a degree from college or something, playing in bands and all kinds of musical instruments. He said, I want to find a place that I can play my horn in a church like you've got. I said, you won't find that. They don't have entertainment programs when you preach these truths. I said, good luck, but you're not going to find it. It's not out there. All that does is mess up the truth. Entertaining people just messes up their concentration on what's true. Doesn't it? Now, there's so much on this. I got to go back and give you a couple of verses I've already given to you over here in the book of James. In the book of James. How much time do I have, Mike? 94. All right. Look over here in the book of James. Now, this is Billy Graham. And I think sometimes what I need to do is read it to you. Because if I quote it, you may think to yourself, maybe Jim is preaching at it, but not verbatim. When I quote a verse to you, it's verbatim. Now, when you go to James 3, or James 4, excuse me. James 4, verse 1. From whence come wars and fightings among you? Who's he talking to? Is he talking to unbelievers? No. He's talking about the wars and fightings among the church and of the people that are believers. Come they not hence even of your lusts? Now that word lust is not the common word for lust. That word lust is the word hedone. Hedone. The other word lust is epithumia. This word hedone, a person that's hedonistic, has no restraint. If he wants it, I'm going to do it. I don't care what it is. If it feels good, do it. That's what he's saying. And this is going on in the church. Even of your own lust that war in your members. You lust, believers in the church. You always want to know who these guys are talking to. Go back to the chapter 1. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes that which are scattered abroad, greetings. My brethren. He's talking to his brothers in Christ, isn't he? That's who he's talking to. So when you get back over here, and he's addressing this is not talking about people who are not saved and need to get saved. We don't believe in that. God's people, this is talking about to the church, stop your lusting. You lust and have not. That word lust is the word epithumeo, M-E-O. M-I-A is a form of that. It comes from epi and thumos. Thumos means to breathe hard after. Epi means to cover your life with breathing hard after something. I've said it so many times, it's like saying, I got to have that. I got to have her. I got to have that ring. I got to have that. I just got to have it. That's what lust is. I'm going to get it somehow. You lust and have not. You kill and desire to have. You mean the church was doing that? Yes. And you cannot obtain. You fight in war. You have not because you ask not. Boy, now the charismatics will take that and run with it, won't they? Because you aiteo not. Everywhere you find ask, it's the word aiteo. It's a legal term. It's a conditional word. In fact, it comes from the same word, A-I-T-E-M-A. Itema, this will show you that this is a lawful term. When Jesus said, I find no fault in him, I'll get it right in a minute. When Pilate said, I find no fault in him, he used this word itema, and iteo is the common word ask. You have to ask legally to get what you want. Whenever the Bible says, whatsoever you ask, when you pray, believe you receive, and you shall have, whatever you ask. Have you ever wondered why you pray and you don't get your prayers answered? Because prayers are not answered. Prayers are bowing to the will of God. Whatsoever you pray, believe that you receive. Whenever you ask, whatever you pray and you ask, Believe, you shall receive. Believe. All those words have basically the same meaning. Prayer, proseuchomai, proseuchomai comes from pros and euche. Euche means to will or desire, and pros means toward, towards the will of another. So when you pray, you bow to the will of God, don't you? So that way you can't pray for whatever you want. You bow to God's will. So whatever you pray, when you ask is the word aiteo. Believe is the word P-I-S-T-E-U-O. And believe is the same thing as faith. And faith is death to self, and that's obeying God. But the difficult one is this word aiteo. Look at 1 John 2. Here's how you get what you ask. You have to get rid of your belly to get what you ask. I don't mean go on a program to reduce your weight. You got to get rid of your belly. You can't have what you ask unless you have a daily cross. When you have a daily cross, you won't hate the cross of Christ, and your God won't be your belly. This is a battle between the belly and the spirit. The belly is the same thing as this fleshly man right here. That can't be the most important thing in your life. Over here in 1 John 3, this is one of the most important verses concerning asking in all the Bible. Whatsoever we ask, we receive of him because of some conditions. We keep his commandments and do those things that are pleasing in his sight. That word keep, tereo, means to guard against loss. Where are the commandments written? In our hearts. You cannot change anything that's written in your heart. You may say, I don't like this. I want that car. I want to cuss a little. I want to get mad. I want to drink a little, or I want to laugh at the dirty jokes around my friends. But you've got to restrain yourself, put a restraint on yourself. You have to keep the commandments and guard them against loss. You can say, they're in my heart, they're written in my heart. I know that's wrong. It's hard for me to deal with that, but I know it's wrong. You can't say, well, I just don't know right. I don't know whether that's wrong or not. You don't. Were you stupid or what? People are not stupid. They know when they're doing wrong. First thing they do is they say, is this right or wrong? That's the first thing they say. Well, if you have to say, is this right or wrong, it's wrong. If there's a question in your mind, whatsoever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Do all to the glory of God. Do it with all your might. That's all you have to remember. It's wrong if you feel uncomfortable doing it. And we're not just to abstain from evil, we're to abstain from appearances of evil. If it looks like it might be evil and it might affect somebody with my testimony and I may lead somebody astray, stop. That goes with the 14th chapter of Romans. We're not to cause people to stumble by what we do. Sometimes you have to give up something that you really want to keep doing and you don't see anything really wrong with it other than the fact you might lead somebody astray. You like to fish? Well, you can't fish every day, and you can't fish all day Saturday and all day Sunday. You got to come here. Can you? That's when fishing becomes a sin. And he says, we have to keep his commandments and do those things that are pleasing in his sight. That word pleasing, aresko, A-R-E-S-K-O. It means well-pleasing. It means exactly what it says, what pleases God. What is it that pleases God? This is going to connect with what we've been talking about. It's what Billy Graham wouldn't preach. If he ever preached it, I don't remember it. Go over to Romans 12:1. Here's what pleases God. We have a problem, and our problem is that our God is our belly when we've got a lot of self in us. You remember Paul said, I got this inner man and this outer man. I got an inner man, outer man, and the inner man serves Christ. That's the new birth in us. And the outer man serves the flesh. That would be the belly. It'd be the same thing as the belly. You haven't crucified that outer man yet. You have to come to a place where the most important thing in your life is Christ. Whether you're doing right. Does any of you ever pray and say, I'm talking about old Christians, people that are seasoned. Do you ever pray, Lord, am I saying the right thing? And am I doing what I should do? I pray that prayer often. Lord, am I approaching these people right? Is there something else I could do? Help me to see if I'm not doing right. If I could deal with people a better way. You got to even, the older you get, the more you want to bow to the will of God. And you didn't have it all right the first time around, so why not ask God for help along the way? Now, where was I? Romans 12:1. Romans 12:1. Here's what pleases God. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. What would that be? That's a cross, isn't it? Well, you can't be a follower and a learner without a cross. And if you hate the cross of Christ, which is a daily cross, your God is your belly, and you like things better, you like dirt better than you like God. But Paul said that to believers, and I've said this before, and this is the way it goes along with it. You got contention and strife and got all these other things in your body. You got contention and strife and pride and the list goes on, which is nothing but self. And it takes a lot of fire, a lot of trials, and a lot of years for God to burn that out of you. In order for you to desire to kill off self, to kill off your belly. This is the same thing as your belly out here. He said, with the flesh, with the outer man, I serve the law of the flesh, there in Romans 7. And he says right here, this is what's pleasing to God in Romans 12:1. Romans 12, verse 1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. That is a daily cross. It's the same thing as a cross. If you're a living sacrifice, you're going out there and telling people the truth. They're getting mad at you, and they'll crucify you on a daily cross. They'll get you. Well, they hadn't got me yet. Well, you're not plain enough. If nobody's ever angry at you, I preach enough to people. I don't mean it to boast. God has made it a real simple thing to me. I got all the town angry at me on the TV. One more or less, don't matter. One more person down here at the restaurant, down at the grocery store. That don't matter. I've got enough people mad at me that I don't care about whether anybody else gets mad or not. If you can get to there, if you can get to that place, it won't matter. See, when I approach people, I don't care whether they believe or not. I only want them to believe if God wants them to believe. And I've told them, you can't believe this, what I'm telling you, unless you're one of God's predestinated elect. I told a girl that one day. You can't believe it. I'm not trying to get you to believe something. I'm telling you, if you belong to God, you will believe it. If you don't belong to God, you will not. And I can't do anything to convince you. And she looked scared when I told her that. And that's the truth. If that's the truth, why don't you talk to people like that? Is that hard to talk to them? I've been cut up and hacked up and roasted on so many people's dinner table that I had one more slice, don't matter. One more shot, I don't care. So he said, present your body a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God. That word acceptable is the word Eucharistos. Eucharistos is a composition of you and oresco. Oresco is that same word over in 1 John, that we do the things that are pleasing. It's the same word as pleasing. So what's pleasing to God is death to self, death to your belly. That goes against, if you're young, if you're 40 or younger, that goes against your nature, doesn't it? Whew. I remember hearing this or reading it when I was young, thinking, boy, that goes against what I feel. I know it. Let me assure you of something. I'm living a more contented life than I've ever lived in my life. I don't care what people think anymore. I don't care about the enemies I make. I'm always praying in every prayer, Lord, fight my battles. I can't do it anymore. I tried fighting with this outer man. You can't ever win with the outer man. Fighting for your belly is a waste of time. I don't believe in fighting people anymore. I believe in telling the truth. If they don't like it, walk away. That's what we're supposed to do. Then he says, and be not conformed to this world, soon schematizo, soon, S-U-N-S-C-H-E-M-A-T-I-Z-O, soon, S-C-H-E-M-A-T-I-Z-O. That schematizo means to be formed with. Don't be formed with the world. We got to prove what is acceptable to God. When it says, which is your reasonable service, the word reasonable is the word logikos. It comes from the word logos. It is your word service. This is what the Bible says you're supposed to do, crucify self. How many preachers you think are talking about crucifying self or crucifying the desires of the flesh? I don't even hear preachers. I hear preachers talking about what God wants to do for you and how he wants to give you a happy Christian life and how he wants you to prosper in life and get along and have a wonderful time with your friends and your family. That's not what he wants. He wants death to self if it makes enemies of all your family. My preaching hard has made enemies of my daughter. She'll be 58 this year, just a few months. She wants nothing to do with me. Her son, my grandson, wants nothing to do with me. My sister don't want anything to do with me. My younger brother absolutely didn't want anything to do with me because I call him down every time I see him. I'm not mad at him. I just don't want him to be the false teacher that he is. So I have no fellowship with him. I want my family to believe God. I'm glad Eric and Karen, Eric my son and Karen my daughter-in-law, and the kids are growing up with some truth. I'm so thankful for that. And I would feel the same thing. I said before, if my little brother would call me and say, Jimmy, I'm sorry for the things I've done and I want to live for the Lord, I'd say, all is forgiven. Let's forget it. Let's go forward. That's all it would take. And if I felt like that would mend fences, but you can't do that without forgiveness. You can't do that without calling people down and rebuking them. If you'll notice, we've been talking about the belly, a daily cross, which crucifies the belly, and you either got your mind on stuff with the outer man, or you got it on God, spiritual things. I'd rather talk to people about spiritual things than anything I know. I just, wherever I go, we talk. Sometimes Ben and Holly will come over to the house. We'll sit there for 3 hours, and don't we talk about the Bible? Constantly, don't we? That's what it's about. That's what life is about to me. I hope that God will deal with your heart and you'll get to hating your belly. Because that's nothing but their mind is, if you love your belly, your mind is on dirt. You don't want to crucify the flesh. You don't want to be pleasing to God. And that has to do with every phase of your life. Getting angry at your wife, getting angry at your husband. Are you getting angry because of your belly? Or are you getting angry because of something spiritual? Everything boils down to this right here, the inner man. This is a fight between the inner man and the outer man. And guess who's going to win? If you'll live long enough, you'll get old and wore out and tired and say, I give up. And you'll throw your hands in the air and really begin to surrender. I've run out of time. We'll come back and talk some more about the orge next week. Let's pray. Father, thank you for truth. Help us to overthrow this enemy of... The enemy is our flesh, Lord. That's all it is. That's the same thing as the orge, the desire to get people because we think they've hurt us and we want to get them back. Lord, help us not to be that way. Fight our battles. We don't even know how to do that. We'll give you praise for all things. In Christ's name, amen. I love about the belly. Hey, what are you doing, David? Let me give you some. Huh? I gotta give you. Huh? Wait a minute. Let me find my. What did I do with your? Here it is. Ooh. Take this and this.
Oh, gracias, senor.
Gracias, senor.
That means thank you, sir. Probably see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you. It was a great message today.
Thank you, brother. I love you.
Very challenged by that today.
Well, I hope we all are. Hey, guys, what y'all doing? You love Papa? Huh? I love you. Your dad says you're doing real good in school. Are you on the honorary roll? Are you on the honorary roll? The honorary? What are you doing, guy? Huh? What are you doing? You want some green or yellow gum? Yellow. Okay, that's all I got right now. You want green? Can you pick that up for me? That's hard for me to reach. Hey, Andrew.
How you doing, Jim?
I'm pretty good. How you doing? Hanging on?
Yeah, hanging in now.
That's what I'm doing, hanging on. Judy.
It's a great message, Jeff.
How you doing? Well, maybe we can get a hold of the fact that we need to quit fighting everything but ourselves, not ourselves.
You know, I turned it down to 64, so I don't do it.
Yeah. The way we please Him is to get rid of self. We have to love the cross instead of hating it, loving dirt. Dirt's ourselves. Well, yeah. You'll stand for truth regardless of the cause. It don't matter if people hate you for it. They're going to start, if you say it sincere and serious, you don't try to beat them up with it. You just tell them, well, this is the truth, whether you like it or not. You said gentle but firm. That's what it's about. Let me say bye to, hey.
Anyway.
What are you doing? Oh, pretty good, I guess. Hanging? No, she's not. She's really having a hard time. She got ready to come. Thank you, bro. She got ready to come to church and she had to go back to bed. She was ready to walk out the door. She said, I can't go. She said, she's having a hard time.
But he's, you know, the doctors are telling him to be, I'm going to call you first.
Okay. I'm going to call you, come see us. We're good. You come see us. Okay, we're good.
Is to rest completely. I mean, they had I got a question.
Okay.
For 483 years. All right. To Christ come into the city, right?
It's what now?
In Daniel, we talk about the 483 years.
Yeah.
409, 70
Yeah.
left.
Yeah.
What day does that start to get that 483?
Well, it starts at the going forth the command to restore and build Jerusalem, which is in Nehemiah the 2nd chapter. That's where it starts. It was the beginning of the 70 weeks. God fulfilled all of them except that 70th week.
It's not the beginning of the temple, it's the beginning of the city.
It's building of the city, yeah, not the temple. Let me sit down. It's the build. It's the build. It's the decree to rebuild the city, not the temple.
That's going to make up 483.
Yeah, I've got that exactly on a chart. You need to get that book that I've got, written by Harold Homer. I don't agree with everything he says, but I agree with a lot. The chronological aspects of the life of Christ. You have that? Harold Honer.
Honer, H-O-N-E-R.
I was going to go up here and see if I had one. How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Hi, how you, sweetie pies? Got sweetie pies everywhere. Do y'all want some gum? Here. Aha. There you go. Yeah, I'll give you another one, even though you got some in your mouth. Okay. Wait a minute, let me see if I got one. Well, no, you can take that here.
I'll bring it back to you.
No, you need. It takes a long time to study this. A long time. Yeah, I've got several of them. Well, that ain't mine. I got 2 or 3 of them at home.
You must have that mark or something.
I don't know. Okay.
And I am still looking for a car. I'll find something.
You find something. Okay.
What I need to do is keep one all the time. I know we're going to need it. And not be so trying to get it.
Yeah.
I'll try to get one.
I appreciate you helping me find one. What are you doing? What are you doing, Ron?
Going to get your eggs. I got the time. Hail Mary, we miss her.
Well, she was ready